Okay, so today I'm going to do this on the Mac, and I'm excited to see if the Elgato mic is going to work just as good as it does on the Windows machine. Either way, I am going to read out loud from my debut novel because I forgot to do so during the latest couple of streams. There were no movements, no noises, nothing. William grew increasingly uncomfortable, and the unnatural position he'd been forced into was starting to hurt, even though fear still pinned him down. Was it a local militia, or maybe that group roaming the streets near the central station? He had occasionally nightmares about them, even though he couldn't be sure they were actually as terrifying as he imagined. How much time had passed now? 10 minutes? Maybe just a few. It didn't matter because it felt like 20, and his knees had started to shake. Now his legs were seething too. He could barely do this anymore. But there had been something. Then soft fur suddenly touched his bare feet and pressed itself up against him. He heard purring and felt the warmth of a cat that had crept up on him in the dark. He gasped for air, involuntarily and with relief, the sound echoing strangely in the looted store. His trembling hand slid down to the lonely and clearly affectionate cat. Still out of breath, he stroked it, turned on his flashlight, and carefully aimed the beam at it. It was scruffy but well-fed and had a small cat tag around its neck. The city had been kind to it. William whispered soothingly into its ear that flicked back and forth with interest. Then, in one smooth motion, he reached down and broke its neck. Beggars can't be choosers. Chapter 2. Eva was in hell, in a manner of speaking. It had been 3 days since William had left, and she had no idea what to do with herself. No one had ever imagined that surviving the apocalypse would be so damn boring. In the beginning, there had been no time for boredom, let alone thinking things through. Like the few other survivors spared by the disease, they had been on the run for the longest time, and the endless fight to stay alive had been unlike anything else. The urge to survive had demanded everything, and each small action had carried the seed of a blessed kind of emptiness. Back then, they had been mercifully free of nagging thoughts, of uncertainty, of that damned self-interrogation. And now there was nothing but a vast and echoing inner landscape. She had all the time in the world to reflect on every cursed little thing that came into her head. Yesterday, she had spent the entire day trying to remember the colors in the kitchen of her childhood home, the furniture, and where everyone used to sit. The day before that, she had tried unsuccessfully to recount every single argument she and William had had since 2022. When they'd stumbled upon their current apartment, they had been sure it would only be temporary. The modest but well-kept place was situated in an otherwise pretty trashy ghetto neighborhood that would serve for maybe a week, 2 at the most. Now they had lived here for over a year, and if it hadn't been for the fever Laura had caught a couple of weeks ago, they'd probably still be playing house in peace and quiet. The entire district was abandoned far enough from the city center that they were relatively safe. It didn't make sense to them that the area was so devoid of other survivors. After all, they'd been able to gather wild fruit from the surroundings ever since they arrived. But then again, this was the northern part of the city, far from even the nicer districts. They often laughed about it, acknowledging that it wasn't so strange after all. People preferred specific zip codes, end times be damned.